Performing effectively in business and making sound business decisions is often a matter of finding balance. This is a theme we'll see repeated continuously, whether it's related to HR policies, production, finance, or even communications. A couple of things we know for certain. They include the fact that people, regardless of the relationship we have with them, prefer to be thought of as valued individuals as opposed to just an employee or a generic customer. Everyone would prefer to receive a letter or an email addressing them by first name instead of simply valued customer or dear employee. We also know that a tremendous amount of time can go into creating correspondence. It's multiplied if we need to generate these types of communications on a regular basis, like monthly or annually. The balance we must find is the ability to give the perception of personalized, individually produced communications without needing to create each one manually. In these cases, a long-standing but often underutilized Microsoft Office feature can assist us. It's called Mail Merge, and it provides exactly the balance we need. We've decided that we want to send a letter to each of our staff members. We want to acknowledge their service in the department and the job role that they currently hold, as well as indicate the date of their employment. We also want to verify their home mailing address and phone number. If we don't have a home phone number, we want to ask that they be sure to provide it, along with an explanation about why we need it and how we will be using it, or perhaps more importantly, how we will not be using that information. We'll be using the final employee list that contains the information that we need. That's an Excel file found in your Chapter 2 Working Files folder. We'll be creating a mail merge using Microsoft Word. The basic text of a letter has already been created, so we don't have to type, and it's in the document called Employee Information Review Notice. That can also be found in your Chapter 2 Working Files folder. We already have this file open in Word, so let's go ahead and get started with our mail merge. There are a couple of ways to do a mail merge, but all of the tools are found on the Mailings tab of the ribbon. Near the left-hand side, you see the option to Start a Mail Merge. If we choose to do something like letters or email messages, it will simply activate the mail merge features and will do everything manually. There's nothing wrong with that once you know what you're doing. But since this is our first time through, we're going to go ahead and use the wizard. That option is all the way at the bottom. So we'll click or tap Step-by-Step Mail Merge Wizard. This is going to open a panel on the right-hand side of the screen to take us through these simple but still very important steps that are part of the process. The first thing it needs to know is what type of document we're going to create. We can create letters, email messages, envelopes, labels, or something called a directory. A directory would be very useful if you wanted to create maybe a catalog of your products and services. The difference is that with the first three, each different entry or record that we have in our underlying Excel file will produce its own letter, email, or envelope. The same is true for labels. With a directory, we'll create a layout on the page, and Word will simply multiply that times the number of records we have. So instead of one item or one service per page, all of them will fill up the page and it will flow over as appropriate. Another little note is that we can create email messages as long as one of the fields that we have in our data is the email address. We're going to do a more traditional letter. Simply stay with the default, move to the bottom of the panel, and click or tap Next. The second step is to choose the starting document. This is the document into which we're going to put a combination of static text that doesn't change, as well as merge fields that will display the customized or personalized information. We already have a file open, so we're going to choose to use the current document. But you'll notice we could also start from a template or start from another document that we don't have open. Once again, since we're one step ahead, we simply move to the bottom and click Next to move on to step 3. Before we can move on any further, Word needs to know what fields it has to work with, and that means we need to identify the underlying data source. We're going to use an existing list, so we need to identify that list by clicking on the Browse link. Then we simply need to navigate to our folder. I have my Working Files folder on the desktop. You can navigate wherever you have yours. Once we open the Chapter 2 folder, we can find our final employee list and give that a double click. The next window that displays will show us a sample of our records. If the workbook has more than one worksheet, we'll definitely need to identify which worksheet has the information we want. Ours only has one, so it's already selected, and we can simply click OK so that Word can display our data. Here we can do a variety of things, including sorting and filtering, and even choosing if we want to include this record or not. We're going to leave all of this as the default and click OK. That takes us back to our wizard. We've selected our data source, we're done with step 3, and ready to click Next at the bottom of the panel to move on to step 4. We're now ready to go ahead and start writing our letter. Fortunately, we've done a lot of the work ahead of time. We simply need to replace some of the placeholder text that I included to identify what we're doing with the actual mail merge fields. For example, at the top of the letter, we have an address block. We'll go ahead and select that text and move up to the ribbon to actually insert the merge field itself. There's an option called Address Block under the Write and Insert Fields group. This asks for us to identify how we want people to be identified, but more importantly, we can see that not all of our information is showing correctly in the preview on the right. If we've used some different terminology for the names of our fields, we may have to help MailMerge figure out what is what. We can do that by clicking Match Fields on the bottom right. This is simply a matter of matching. We know that we don't have a field called Address 1, so we need to tell Word that this is not Address 1, but instead is called Home Address. Optional information will be found down below. This includes a very important field for us, which is the home phone number. Once we ensure everything is matched, we can click OK. And now our preview should begin to look more correct. If it does not, we'll continue to make changes. In this case, we don't want to use a title at the beginning. We just want the simple first and last name. Once this is finished, we can click OK on the bottom right. If the placeholder text was not deleted, we need to delete it now. Notice that when I created this letter, I simply used the less than and greater than symbols. But I left this in place because I want you to see that an actual merge field, while it looks like it has those symbols, is actually different. This may help you differentiate if things don't look right. Now, through the magic of video, we're going to pause a bit while I replace some of these other fields, like first name, department, job role, and hire date. We'll come back as soon as I have that work done. I didn't have to bore you with me replacing all of that placeholder text with actual merge fields. All of that has been done. What is important to review is exactly how I did it. Remember, when we're running the mail merge wizard, or we've otherwise started a mail merge, we have options in the ribbon that allow us to add merge fields. We took a look at address blocks. You can also work with greeting lines, or if you just want to insert individual fields, which is what I did, you can use the Insert Merge Field option, and you'll see all of the available fields here. This is actually a pretty good start to a somewhat personalized letter. It obviously will contain all of the personalized and custom information like address, as well as their first name, department, job title, and hire date. But there's something else that we need to do in part 2 of this video, and that is address the need to work with the phone number, or requesting a phone number from people for whom we do not have one, and acknowledging and asking those for whom we do have one to please check. So in part 2 of this video, we'll take on working with some conditional text.